Live from the Icebox Studio in Montgomeryville, Pennsylvania. It's the Bill and Corey Show. I'm Bill.
And I'm Corey.
Now, we have the live chat feature enabled on our YouTube, so if you're watching it live, you can type in questions for us, and hopefully we have some time to answer them. We had a bunch of different questions today and a lot of props. First question is, can I buy a flush mounting panel, black bezel for an FM 1050 rotameter? That's a lot packed into a short sentence. Okay, this is, the customer wants, the black bezel is for flush mounting of rotameters. So you'd have the, you'd have the panel and be flush there, and a rotameter would stick out the back. So most people order the bezel mounting when they order the rotameter. I really don't know anybody who's tried to order it later. It gets a little tricky, and I'll show you what you have to do if you want to buy the bezel bracket afterwards. And it's not like you can just take the bezel and fit it over the rotameter and put it in through a panel. It doesn't work that way. The bezel frame has the end blocks, the valve end blocks and the seal end blocks in there. And then you'd have to transfer everything over. And the nice thing about this is like a standard FM 1050 rotameter. What's nice about this is you can take apart the different parts and swap them out. So the first thing you would do would be to take out the valve, and you have to, whenever you do that, you want to not have the valve in there tight. You want to have it loose a little bit. That'll be this is your utility valve. You got a 9/16 wrench. You want to be careful. There's a little orifice in there, so kind of tip it up so you don't lose it. Then you want to switch to a 1/2-inch wrench and take out the inlet-outlet fittings. One on the outlets is seal. Well, that's not always that, but the side that doesn't have the valve is the seal end. And then you have the valve end fitting to take out. And the valve end fitting has a little, can't really see it on the camera, has a little cup in there for the orifice to fit in there for the valve. So you gotta, and they kind of look the same, these fittings. So you gotta make sure that you take the one with a little cup end and put it in the end that has the valve. Right, so you got that out, and then you got to take the tube out. Now you want a 5/32 Allen wrench. Loosen it up and then pop it out. So this is a standard frame, and now you want to put it in a bezel frame. And the kind of quirky little thing about the bezel frame is the way that it's machined, you have to put the tube in the back. So the first things we're going to do is put the adapters in place. And you've got these little tabs that help hold the rotameter in place. And oops, got it in there wrong. I got the valve end at the valve. And I got the seal end down at the seal end.
Don't forget this guy.
Oh, yeah, I got to do my little tab, thank you. And it's got a little, most of them have these little pail nuts to help keep everything together. Then you want to put the valve in, and of course you want to tilt it up a little bit so the orifice doesn't fall out. And I'll tighten everything up in just a sec. So to tighten in the valve, it's just at 9/16, just to snug it. And then the adapter fittings, use a 1/2-inch. Snug it in there. Snug it in there. And then you want to get the tube cube in. And here you got to put it into the back. Typically you put it in through the front. And make sure that the floats are on the bottom.
Very important.
And that fit in kind of nicely. And then you got to have the tabs. Sometimes it's a little sticky, and you have to use a little mallet to put in there.
But that one just slid right in nicely.
Yeah, that slid in nicely.
Not so much at rehearsals.
Yeah. And then, yeah, then that's in place. And then you've got, so there, now it's in the frame. And then when you put it in the panel, you have to put the little brackets on, and then another set of pail nuts, and then you're in business. So we don't need to put those on. There So you can see that, yes, it's easier to get it made ahead of time, but what's the nice thing about our FM 1050 rotameters is that you can swap out the adapter fittings, you can swap out the valves, you can put in a different tube cube in there if you want to go to a different flow rate. I'm sorry, I forgot to tighten it up here when I got the tube cube in there, when it's all located. You snug it into place, and it's all good to go. That's a lot of stuff.
Yes, it is.
Next question is on switchovers. So it's a customer needs a 1 to 4 psi delivery pressure on their switchover system. And our current line regulators that we use, this is a line regulator on the switchover. It's typically our most popular ones, 100 psi delivery pressure. We'd also standard ones would be 30 psi or 150 psi. And we've got other ranges too. So at this person wanted 1 to 4 psi, so this wouldn't quite work. So we have different regulators to talk about, and then it's kind of a combo question here. I'll go with the first one. Is that the first thing you can do is you can go with the standard type of line regulator, and we get a 15 psi delivery pressure regulator, and then that will handle that. Sometimes you want to go with a little bit lower pressure, and then there's different options we can use. So you want to go over those?
Yeah, no, I mean, so we have the 81.2.
This is the 81.2, yeah.
And this one could be mounted there. This one does a 2 psi-G, and one of the things you have to remember about the switching out line regulators is the flow rates. So you don't want to choke the flow. So you have to look at that as well. Like for this, for instance, this one is 20 SLPM. This one can be done. This is the 3494. Yeah, the 3494. Yeah. This one is a 15 psi-G regulator. It also flows at 20 SLPM. This is one of our, and if you can pick that guy, the pancake.
Is there 3703?
Okay. Well, the 3700 series.
Yeah, it's 3700 series. You got these pancake regulators.
Yeah.
This one is actually a 3703 regulator.
And those ones go.
It's a little bit higher flow rate. Well,
higher flow rate, but the pressures are lower than even the 15 psi. I mean, they go lower than the 15 psi-G, so it can handle the 1 to 4 much easier. Not much easier, but easier.
But these are brass with rubber type diaphragms, and we would have to mount them. We'd have a different little block here instead of the regulator, and then we'd mount whatever regulator you want over here. So either
for the 3700.
So we'd mount that there, or the 81-2. It kind of comes down at an angle, so that's going to look kind of odd. But there's all sorts of different things that we can do with your switchovers.
Yes.
If you want.
The options that we give you, we're not. That's not the be all end all.
Okay. We got kind of, next one's a question that came in probably about an hour before showtime. I thought it'd be kind of fun to do. We had a customer who's using titanium, I forget the mix, it's TiCl4, so it's titanium tetrachloride. Has that in their gas stream, and they're concerned about it diffusing back to their mass flow controller. Titanium tetrachloride is a corrosive gas, and you don't want to have it messing up your mass flow controller.
Yes.
I mean, you couldn't get a mass flow controller.
I was just going to say, yeah,
for corrosive
use,
that's probably the best thing. But even so, you probably want to try to preserve it. And so he's concerned about the gas diffusing back into that, and wondered if a 402V check valve would do the trick. Now the 402V check valve is a Monell check valve with Viton fittings in there, and that's acceptable to use in titanium tetrachloride service. So yes, you can use this downstream of your mass flow controller, and it'll prevent the corrosive gas from backflowing into your mass flow controller. Yeah,
it's always important when using corrosive gases to have material compatibility so that the corrosive gas doesn't ruin your materials.
Yeah. Then our next question is on a 6290 excess flow valves. It says, I'm interested in the 6290 excess flow valve. the 6295C. So we sell different flow ranges, A, C, and F. So this is the mid-range one. It states in the chart, differential pressure of 5 psi. Can you tell me what that means?
Differential pressure is just another way of saying the pressure drop. So the max differential pressure will be 5 psi. It doesn't mean it's going to be 5 psi using any flows, but once you get above 5 psi, it'll choke the flow, and then you won't get any flow at all. So that's the max amount of pressure drop that you'll have through this, depending on flow conditions.
Yeah, that's good. And then the last question we have is on it is a 5000 series gas panel, and they're asking about the pressure temperature ratings for the valves on it. Now these valves, these valves are rated to minus 65 to 150 degrees Fahrenheit.
And it's the same valve, even if you have a 5-panel valve or 5-valve panel. This valve is the same for every valve.
Yeah, and it's good from vacuum up to 3,500 psi. And this is a 5100 series panel, the one being one valve panel. So we felt 5100, there's a 5300 that will have high pressure valves on it. And then there's the 5500, which is enabled to do a cross purge on there. So they all use the same kind of valves. And yeah, so I guess they wanted the pressure ratings and temperature ratings for their hazardous evaluation of it. So that's all the questions we have for this week. We didn't have any YouTube chat ones come up. So tune in next week at 10 a.m. on Thursday for another episode of the Bill and Corey Show.
Set your VCRs.